it's like coming here is like the difference between coming to the Grand Canyon, seeing the Grand Canyon in reality versus seeing photos or videos. And it's that kind of impact. I have not seen anyone come through that door that doesn't just go. And in seeing this, they don't know a quarter of what's going on behind this.
It's the artistic side, but it's also the physical, visual impression that you get. And if I was to say, how can we make it alive, or how can we make it resonate with people, I think it's exactly this. The more opportunities that you get to bring people to the American Mural Project, and they get to see what people do, physically touch it, tangible, it becomes real.
AMP is at the heart of trying to make Winstead a bigger, better, cooler place for more people to visit. And that's one of the reasons I love AMP. I really want it to succeed.
My idea of work has definitely evolved and deepened through the American Mural Project. I've definitely realized that if I want something, I have to work for it. And in that, I have the place and the space at the American Mural Project to do so, as well as a safe environment to do that.
When people walk into this space, you have no choice but to be awed. When you walk out of this space, you probably have no choice but to respect the American work.
Good evening, and welcome to American Mural Projects, a tribute to American workers. Our first virtual event ever. My name is Amy Wynn, and I'm the Executive Director here at the American Mural Project, or AMP, as we fondly refer to our organization. Well, behind me is a section of the mural, and before me is the mural itself. It's 120 feet wide, 5 stories high, and 10 feet deep in parts. It's the largest collaborative artwork in the world, installed inside. And we're very excited to share our progress tonight as we move forward. Some of the folks viewing tonight may have helped create the art that is featured in the mural, and some may actually be featured in the mural itself as subjects. Other viewers may in fact be new to the mural for its first time. We are delighted to welcome all our viewers who are tuning in from coast to coast and beyond. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to share AMP's journey in a nutshell with you. I am standing in one of our 2 historic mill buildings. It hasn't always looked this way. After years of creating sections of the mammoth 3-dimensional mural, both in her studio and with young people throughout the country, Ellen Griesedieck, AMP's founder and artistic director, decided with the board to have the mural housed in this old textile mill in Winstead, Connecticut. Construction eliminated the second level of the structure, creating a wide open cathedral-like space. The roof had to be raised to accommodate the 5-story steel armature on which the mural would be installed permanently. After this portion of the construction's phase 1 was finished, Ellen and crew began installation in 2019, and it is now almost fully complete. The workers depicted in both Ellen's paintings and in the collaboratively created sections of the mural are all real people who inspired Ellen because of the work they do and how they approach their jobs. You will learn more about this later in the program. AMP is finishing up the construction on the gallery building over the next 12 months, including the completion of the spiraling viewing platform, the stairs, the elevator, and the program room. And then we'll get to work on phase 2 to complete the entire campus. Fortunately, completing phase 1 will allow AMP to open to the public formally in the spring of 2022, which we are very excited about. When construction first began, and as it progressed, AMP began piloting innovative education programs, and subsequently has established several active and successful programs serving elementary school kids through college-age students, as well as professional development for teachers. Tonight's tribute to American workers is an inspiring mix of intimate conversation, soaring music, and a never-before-seen virtual tour of the mural. American Mural Project wants to thank tonight's sponsors for making this ambitious program possible. Marketing Solutions Unlimited, Scope Construction, Assured Partners, Chubb, Elise Harney Real Estate, Northwest Community Bank, R&M Insulation, Torrington Savings Bank, and William Parati & Sons, Inc. I hope that you will feel as inspired as we are about this project and join the family of American Mural Project supporters this evening. Throughout the evening, you'll be able to make a donation if you choose to, and if you already have, thank you. You're welcome to increase your generosity, and you can do that by going to americanmuralproject.org/support. You can also Venmo a donation by going to @AMP Mural Project, and you can also text to give by texting AMP 2021 to the following number. And join us in supporting AMP, and thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mimi Madden, AMP's Development Director, who will introduce our special guests.
Thank you, Amy. Over the past year, millions of Americans had the ultimate disruption, and we all had to change the way that we work. For some of us, that meant no more going to the office and endless Zoom meetings. For others, that meant masking up to work on the front lines, whether it's working in a store, making deliveries, or providing necessary health care. Teachers and parents had to grapple with the challenges of distance learning. And sadly, many, many people lost their jobs. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it has been about the singular role of work in our lives. That is what tonight is all about, celebrating the importance of all work. As we were thinking about this idea of a tribute to American workers, two people came to mind immediately. Amy had discovered the news story from 2018 about Geoffrey Owens and his time working at Trader Joe's, and she knew she wanted to connect him to AMP. A customer who snapped Geoffrey's photo at the register and sent it to the New York Daily News unintentionally set off a national conversation about the dignity of all work, which just happens to be at the heart of AMP's mission. More on that topic in a moment. Geoffrey has had a long, successful career as a TV and movie actor. He is the founder and artistic director of the Brooklyn Shakespeare Company, and he has a passion for teaching and inspiring younger upcoming actors. Lots of things that really resonate with us here at AMP. And we could think of no one better to lead a conversation with Geoffrey than John Dankosky. John has been a longtime friend of AMP. He's interviewed Ellen several times on WNPR's Where We Live, a show he founded and hosted for over a decade. John has won national awards for his news and documentary work. He founded the New England News Collaborative, the weekly news magazine Next, and the weekly roundtable, The Wheelhouse. He is currently director of multimedia content for the Connecticut Mirror and contributing editor and host for the national radio program Science Friday. And then there's Ellen Griesedieck, the third member of our panel, the artist who started the whole thing, who had the idea for this little piece of art behind me. She's kind of a force of nature. Ellen envisioned this celebration of the American worker that has now grown into a mammoth project that's been created by her and thousands of kids and adults around the country. It's what one reporter aptly called the Mount Rushmore for the rest of us. So we invite you all to sit back, relax, and enjoy this intimate conversation about work, this tribute to American workers.
Geoffrey, I want to start with you, and I want to ask you first, when did you know you wanted to be an actor?
When I was in grade school, sometime around second or third grade, when I was in the production of Raggedy Ann. And people just thought I was terrific. I thought to myself, wow, I might want to do this for a living.
Wow, so that far back.
Yes, in fact.
When did you start to think this is going to be a job I can do?
Probably after college, when I actually started pursuing it and had some success relatively quickly, which was both good and bad.
Yeah.
And I very soon, within a year and a half after graduating from college, at a small college in New Haven, I started getting some work and getting paid for it, and then I realized, you know, I might actually be able to make a go of this. What I didn't know is that, you know, my work, my career, doesn't guarantee you work, no matter what you've done, especially if you worked early in your career. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to work at any given stage of your career. So that's something that made it, when I said it was a mixed blessing, to be so successful so early, get the Cosby Show a year and a half after college, for instance, and then go through many times in my career where I didn't work for 7, 8 months at a time, sometimes more. You know, that's hard to reconcile.
Well, walk us through that a little bit, because people who aren't in that business must assume that a young man who stars in a program that is piped into all of our homes and we all see, they think, well,
He's got it made.
You've got it made. You don't have to work again in your life.
Right.
But it's not like that.
So not true. No, you know, I mean, the hardest thing about a career in the arts is keeping it going. You know, you can have a lot of success, but at certain points, and then nothing is guaranteed. There is absolutely zero, people think I'm exaggerating, there is zero stability in my field. I not only don't know when I'm going to work again, I don't know if I'm going to work again. Even after the Trader Joe's thing happened in the fall of 2018, and there was this intense level of scrutiny and opportunity bestowed upon me, 9 months after that, work stopped cold, and I didn't work again for another 7.5 months, even after that had happened. You know, so it's, you know, that's the career I've chosen, that's the field I've chosen, and it's just part of the territory.
It's amazing though, because a lot of people haven't worked like that, right? They've stayed at the same job maybe for 30 years, and there's some goods and bads about that. I was at a job for a very long time, but before I left. But this instability, this not knowing whether or not you're going to work again, how does that, frankly, how does it make you feel? How does it make you feel as you wake up every day thinking, I'm not sure what's going to happen next?
It's very strange. It fosters, of course, a great amount of at least economic insecurity, to put it lightly. I think what's gotten me through these years, these decades, is the fact that I've always stayed in touch very much with my art. There's the business, and then there's the craft and the art of acting. And I loved the craft and the art of acting as much now as I did when I was in 2nd grade. And the business of acting is a killer. You know, it really, but if you love the craft and the art of it, that's what I've held on to. I've always stayed busy. When I haven't been making money at acting, I've always been acting anyway, or teaching, or doing something that I love teaching. So that's the way I've gotten through the hard times, is just, you know, and of course just hoping, having faith that one day I will work again. Meanwhile, I'll stay busy, you know. And, you know, teaching has provided some income sporadically. But the Trader Joe's job was the first job in 32 years at that point that I'd taken outside of either directing, acting, or teaching in the entertainment business.
So that's really interesting, because a lot of people in your industry spend an awful lot of time in the gig economy. They work to support themselves while they're acting, but you've been able to have an artistic career up until that point in which you didn't have to do that.
I went a long way, John.
Yeah.
it was a good run, but it ran out. Yeah. At a certain point, it was like, I've got to do something about this.
I want to come back to the story in a second. I just want to ask you, Ellen, about something he was just talking about. The business of art and the craft of art. The making of the art sometimes leads to the business piece of it, but sometimes they're entirely different things. And I guess I'm wondering if there's something about that resonates with you. You've been at the heart of this project for such a long time, and half the time I've talked to you about it, you're talking about the art, but the other half is, I got to raise some money for this art. So, I mean, what about that resonates with you and your work?
It's a totally different thing. because I'm not thinking of my family or putting food on the table or the increasing debt, which is a way different problem to have. I've been lucky all my life. I started out being encouraged to do whatever I could do as well as I could do it, the best you could do it. And as I mentioned to Geoffrey earlier, my father said, find something you love to do and you're not hurting anyone, and you found the secret in life. And I mean, by the way, it's not so easy to find something you love to do and you're not hurting anybody. I mean, you know, when you really think about it, that narrows the field right down. And then, you know, from the time I was in college, I was doing these great protest paintings of, you know, protesting Vietnam and everything. And Mom would say, can't you just paint something I can put over the sofa? You know, I mean, it was like, there was never the sense that, okay, Ellen's going with this, you know, we can just, you know, ride her all the way to, and it was like, well, you do have these other talents, and you might want to think of something that is going to get you through. And I spent a lot of time from the time I graduated working as a cocktail waitress and, you know, doing all the things young people do while they're trying to figure out how, you know, I worked in an ad agency during the day. I never saw the light of day. I developed pictures all day. And then I went and worked at the Ancient Mariner on the coast. So, you know, there were a lot of difficult times, but they weren't the kind of times that Geoffrey's talking about. And when you're talking about what, you know, making this work, that's a wholly other idiotic thing. I mean, that no one with any brains in their head would do what I did here. That's just, I mean, I've got to be honest with you. And the only thing I believe that keeps artists going is the fact they're not very practical.
Well, maybe we can turn to some of the pieces of the mural and start maybe, Ellen, with the part of the food industry. We were talking about Trader Joe's, and we're talking about this work that Geoffrey was doing. It's funny that that work has shifted in a lot of people's minds in just this last year, right? In 2018, people snap a photo and write stories and say, how is this guy who we know from television working at Trader Joe's? And now, maybe some of those same people are putting big hearts out in their front lawn saying, yay, essential workers.
Thank you, essential workers.
I want to ask Ellen about that, but let me ask you first, Geoffrey. I mean, how does that strike you now in that, you know, in this time?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when the thing happened with me, all of a sudden there was this nationwide conversation, worldwide even, but especially nationwide, because America has a particular problem with this idea of all work being dignified and noble, etc. So I became kind of involuntarily a kind of poster child for this all work matters movement. And so it was a hot topic for 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year. And then like anything, it started to die out. It started to dissipate, started to ebb. And then, don't you know, the pandemic hit. And then, oh my gosh, everyone's saying these people who do these essential jobs, grocery store workers included, are now considered essential workers who are literally saving our lives. So it was amazing that, unfortunately, we needed a pandemic to remind us that, you know, these people really matter. The truck drivers really matter, you know, to put it lightly, you know. And then, you know, this idea that I was trying to get people's heads around that one job is not better than another. You know, the CEO of this corporation is not a better job than the truck driver or the grocery store worker. Well, you know, say, no. Think about it. They both serve a very important, essential purpose, and you cannot dismiss one more than you can the other. And so, yeah, they're, you know. Yeah. But that's hard for us, I think, to really get our heads around that, oh, yeah, but this one pays more. Yeah, that person is fortunate enough that his job pays more. That doesn't mean this job is less important or less essential.
The only thing I'd add to what Geoffrey's saying in sort of agreement is, I started this 22 years ago, way before COVID, way before 9/11. And every time there's a tragedy, or people come up and say, oh man, what a great time for this. And the only thing that bothers me about that is, it is always a great time for this. That everyone on here is an essential worker. And I both want to say, yes, finally you're seeing, but I also want to say, do you guys ever look around? Do you ever think about who's doing that field? Who did this steel? Who, you know, anything we appreciate is done by somebody who's an essential worker. And what's even more amazing to me is because no one takes time to look around, and they're all staring at their, especially kids, you know, looking at their phones and laptops and everything, is they never see the beauty in it. What happened for me was I came home from the West Side Highway, and I'm up on that beam with Bob, and he's telling me I'm not paying attention because I'm 200 feet up, you know, and these guys just, they're not supposed to, but they walk around up there like it's a highway, you know. And so I'm up there taking pictures, and I'm totally into it, and Duke's showing me how they weld old steel to new, and I'm like, God, I love this. And then I'm looking at him going, this guy's an artist, total artist, because he'll say, you see, this beam's got to go, because you see where that's rotted through, and you know how I knew that, and he starts a litany of stuff about how many years it took him to figure out how that rotten steel, you know. Now, everyone that's flying by on the West Side Highway is going, when the hell are they going to finish that thing? Nobody's looking at Duke. Nobody's looking at Bob, Jim, any of these guys. And you sit there and you go, what is wrong with us? When have we stopped looking around and noticed the art and the beauty of all of these things? Does it take a pandemic for us to stop?
You make such a good point about the things that people build that we don't take a look at and understand what goes into it. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about the food industry that you depict, and right here behind us, you know, the fields of grain. That's something that we certainly have seen as essential over the course of this last year. But it's something that people just have to wake up and do every day and do again. And the trucks just keep rolling with the food to the store so that someone can sell it to us and so that we can eat. Maybe you can talk, Ellen, a little bit about how you wanted to depict the importance of the food industry in America.
I live next to Scott, so I see him do that field. And it's not lost on me or any of us how late it is on a summer night and that light is still on and he's out there still doing that. And then the next morning I'll come in and Nine will be milking the cows, and I'll say, you know, I'll just run on my run, come in and say hi, and you know, and she'll say, well, we had a night, we calved it, you know, and we had a little complication there, and then, you know, and then Scott comes in and he has about 5 4-letter words, and it's talking about the transmission on the tractor's gone, and I got to go drive all the way down to Waterbury and blah, 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 and I'm like, yikes, and he goes, that's okay, I'll use the other Ford, and then I'll go back and I'll do this in Waterbury, and you just go, this is their life. And when we interviewed them, because we got a beautiful piece on these guys that's, you know, on our site. And Nina went through an average day. It's a day you would pay anyone to, please take this for me. And she looked kind of, the wind was blowing her hair, and she was like, yeah, she said, and she can name every cow, their names. And then I said, well, we always ask this question of everyone we interview on these things. What would you call one word for the American worker?
Lucky? Lucky.
This is not what other farmers worry about.
I grew up knowing really what it was. That's where I got my love for cows and for farming. And there's something you see on farms, and you see the fulfillment of really producing something. You have to have unlimited patience, which, believe me, I don't always.
Can you see why people wouldn't want this job?
You have to have tremendous stamina. Everything's about being a survivor. But we have found a way. I wasn't delusional that it was all going to be, you know, peaches and cream.
My father milked 100 jerseys in the 50s. I remember he said, "You want to have cows?" I remember when I got my first milk check in my feed bill, and the milk check didn't cover my feed bill. Ones that survive all of these low price shakeouts, they're great farms and they're great farmers. Everybody has a skill, but whatever you do, you have to do it well.
I think part of the story, though, Geoffrey, is that not every job is a job that you absolutely love to do, right? Part of the story of that you've already told a bit about your time working for Trader Joe's is, I'm doing this because I have to do it.
Yeah.
That said,
I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
Grateful for it. It was actually a great gig.
Yeah.
You know, and great people. But yeah, it wasn't, you know, I felt like I have to do this, and that's fine. You know, I was almost relieved in a way that it was interesting. When I worked at Trader Joe's, I felt innocent. Because it's interesting, when you're an artist, and maybe this has to do with the way America views artists as non-essential and even frivolous, you feel this kind of automatic guilt that you're not doing something important enough. Yeah, you're an actor, oh, well, that's nice. We don't really need that, but it's nice that, we don't need movies or plays, but it's nice to have them there kind of thing, so you do that. So that seeps into your being, and you feel like I'm not really doing something that really matters, that counts. And I'll tell you, when I worked at Trader Joe's, I felt like I counted.
A follow-up on that, which is our daughter Judy is a prop master and a screenplay writer. All our families in film and writing and stuff. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But Judy she came in the other day into the studio and she goes, "Can I have Melissa's number?" Melissa's the firefighter up there. And I went, "What do you want Melissa for?" And she knows Melissa because she and her husband did the piece we haven't. And she knows Edwin. And I said, "What do you want that for?" She said, "Verizon's doing an ad and they're looking for a firefighter, a woman firefighter." So she texts and Melissa goes, yeah, I'll do it. Well, I don't know if you guys have seen this Verizon ad, but Melissa is 5 times on there, and then they've got a couple actors who are doing other things, and then Melissa's back on again. These guys went nuts over a real firefighter.
I bet.
One word to define the American worker is, for what I do, I would say nobility. I'm Melissa Bennett. I'm a firefighter at Engine 257 in Canarsie, Brooklyn. When I first got here, knowing that I was going to be the only girl, I knew that I had to make some kind of impression. So I came in here with a cake, and when they opened the cake, it said, "It's a girl." When I was in college, a professor came to me and said, "You're so quiet, you look pretty strong. I think you should become a firefighter." And I said, "Firefighter? There's no women firefighters." My family's reaction was, they were always happy because I was excelling, but I hid becoming a firefighter until the day before I graduated because I knew that they would tell me not to do it. They'd deter me from doing it. So the day before graduation, I got my mother address and I said, "Hey, I'm graduating, I'm gonna be a firefighter." And there was no turning back from there. So. The best parts of being a firefighter are the adrenaline, the action, running into burning buildings. You're going into a fire and seeing red flames. So just helping people, giving them a better life, educating them, and just preserving their homes and their life for another day. Sometimes you work 24-hour shifts and you really get beat up. You're running all day, you're going up and down stairs. I hate running, so I used to run to my friend's house. I used to run to places that I wanted to go to, so it made me run, And we have families and people that rely on you every day, so if you're calling me for the little things, I'm here to help you. If you're calling me for the big things, I'm here to help you. And it's just about just holding a position that makes sure everybody gets home safely. A lot of people look at women as maybe not being able to do the job, not strong enough. So I was a little bit of a rebel, but I feel like being a rebel got me to where I am, and I don't regret any of the choices I made. And young men and young women will look at me and say, this little girl could do it, I can do it too. Yeah.
Ellen, not so much a sponsor, but this is a lifelong friend, and of course the organization is sponsored. A great actor helped you do all of this, and I'm wondering if you can talk about your relationship with Paul Newman.
Oh, God.
Oh, you got a couple hours? I don't know. Paul is so missed for me. I was lucky enough to get to know him when I was still shooting, photographing racing, and Sam, my husband, was driving, and Sam sort of was one of Paul's coaches in the Datsun that he drove to great success after, I was just saying to Geoffrey earlier today that Paul's one of those guys that what did he go? He's called himself a slow learner, but he got it. He would stick to it, he would stay to it, and he would get it. And but he and Sam had great times together, and they did a lot. They would go to these races, and Paul was like he was 20 or something, It would be like they'd have a couple beers, and he'd try to pull the tablecloth out. He'd show them this trick that they do, or they'd race to buy the Coke machine and up the Motel 6 and to the thing and almost kill themselves. I mean, Sam and Paul, this stuff, that really made life fun. He was a big part of that. And then at some race, he was talking about how he was sick of making a salad dressing in his basement with his friend Hoshner, and he said, I just got to get someone to manufacture this. And I said, well, if you do it, I'll do the label. And he goes, you're on. And I went, good, good, good. And then he goes, go out and get a price for 10,000 bottles. And I went, like, next week? And he goes, yeah. And I went, all right. The one thing about Newman was you didn't wait for approvals, or, I would be going, well, we're going to have to get that approved, and then we're going to do that. And he's going, go do it, So, long story short, no one would print it because it was such a small. And I'd keep going, it's Paul Newman. They'd go, yeah, but that's such a small order. So I got my art printer to print the first labels. And it took off. Newman was fun. He was so much fun. And when I started this, he goes, so what's your idea? I said, well, John and Judy are clueless about any work going on around. And what about all the other kids in this whole country? What about the kids in Washington? What about the kids in Pittsburgh? What about kids who have nothing? They not only have nothing, they're also clueless. So now, why don't we make something big and we get a lot of heroes up there? People that are doing it right and doing it for all of us and are role models. Edwin Raymond is suing the New York Police Department for discrimination. He's a role model.
My name is Edwin Raymond, and I'm a police sergeant in Brooklyn, New York. Basically, we used to play out here. My apartment was in the back on the 4th floor, so I didn't get the front view of the building. This is my spot. I used to read my books here sometimes also. My friends, the girls would be playing the jump rope. A good cop is someone that remembers the humanity. It's a human connection before anything else. A good cop is someone who empathizes with the person. A good cop is someone who is brave when bravery is needed, and compassion when compassion is needed.
Hold on, let's make this clear. This is real. This is not for the camera. This is real right here. This is real love right here. You know what I mean? Let them know that.
Fighting for the people as always, man.
This is who we grew up with. This is who we grew up with.
Yep. I'm learning as I go how to navigate working, as a police officer, as a police sergeant, while also being an activist against police brutality and bad police policy. It's very few people know what those two spaces are simultaneously. When I first joined, some people were like, Edwin became a cop, but I joined with a mission, So
and you're still on course, and we respect that.
You gotta believe in what you doing, man. If you believe in what you're doing, then it's gonna show. That's all that matters.
Everything that I'm trying to have done in the Black and Hispanic community is already done in the white community. I'm not trying to rewrite policing. I'm just trying to make sure it's done equally. True community policing, you can't fake it. There's no manual for it. You either have it or you don't. And police departments need to prioritize hiring people who have that passion.
Melissa's a role model. Scott's a role model. There isn't anyone in here that isn't a role model. Now, this is what we got to look at and go, wow, I want to be that. I want to do that. Paul got it. He said, all right, how are we going to get it? And he'd go around places and walk into old mills, because he knew I wanted to put it in an old mill. And he'd go, I found you one. I go, where are you? You know, he'd be on Route 22 somewhere. What are you doing? He said, I'm going from New York and I saw this old mill. And I'm like, okay, Paul, thanks, you know. So it was a lot of fun. We had many, many fun years, and he gave me the first donation we ever really had a serious donation to do a video. And he's on it, and we had a great time doing it. And I often think about him and I say, what if you could see what's going on now, Paul? I mean.
Geoffrey, what was your impression when you first walked in here and you saw this?
I'd seen many pictures before I got here today, but you know, nothing prepared me for walking in here today. It's just astounding, you know. And the first view I had was, you know, you see the whole thing from the side, of course. You see the whole length of it, the whole 120 feet of it, and it's just amazing. Isn't it like the largest indoor art installation in the country or the world, or something like that?
If you put three-dimensional, heaviest, and with many collaborative, then you got it. One of the things that's going to be great is that kids can really get in touch with this. Not only can you see it on 3 different levels eventually, but you're going to be able to walk around there and go behind the mural. What that will allow, because when you make that turn, that is just going to be this giant world of all the pieces we've done with the Agassiz Academy, well, I think we've got 23 states. And you know, you can look at some of the pieces that kids have done, like the tiles, and obviously the foundry worker is all done by 8 schools in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York. So you've got a huge collaborative element to this. And I want kids that visit this and look and go, oh my God, kids my age did this.
15,000 so far, right?
Yeah. And you know, alone in Washington, we worked with 1 school in every district. And at the end, we had one thing, if you work with kids, two rules. 1, you don't tell them what to do. You don't do that here, and you don't do that on a project, because what's the point? If they're going to be creative, what they have to do is go, I got an idea. I know how I can be part of this, and this is mine. So they create their own thing, and it becomes a small piece of what goes into the big thing. And they all know, because I always tell them, now, I'm going to have the final say on this, so I'm going to move things around, and you know, so you got to be ready for that. But at the end of their project, Washington is a really good example. These kids in 8 different schools, we had almost 1,000 kids. They all came together at the Martin Luther King Library, and and Sherry can tell you, Sherry's here somewhere, Sherry and I spent 2 days putting every single kid's piece up on the Martin Luther King wall, so they knew their piece was up there. And it was a mob scene in there. I mean, you can imagine all these kids, they were all painting AMP t-shirts, and you know, this, I don't know, amazing marble floor and everything, and kids all over the place, and they were all running and showing each other their work and everything. And at one point, I'm standing there with markers and all this stuff, and this woman, who was very elderly and distinguished, comes up, and she's got an entourage with her, and she said, are you responsible for this? And I went, oh my God, this is it, we're kicked out. And she goes, I want to tell you I'm president of the board of trustees, and this is the finest thing I have ever seen in this lobby, and I doubt I'll ever see anything like this again. You know, now, how easy is this? You know, all these kids came together, and then we all went to the White House, had our picture taken in front of it was great.
You brought together teachers here too.
Oh, we had a great fun for teachers. The Dalios had I hope they still support this. They support this fund for teachers, and what they do is that, very briefly, they send these teachers all over the world as a wish list. So if a teacher wants to do something over the summer, they present this in a grant, and several of them are awarded this opportunity to do so. The only thing they have to do when they come back is share that with their classes. So marvelous things are happening. One woman taught violin lessons to Syrians who were immigrants. I mean, the stories just make you cry. And so these teachers are top notch. And this gal that worked at McKinley as the principal and always loved AMP said to me, Ellen, I want to do our first Fund for Teachers in here with the first group. And so we did. And I got to address them all. And I tell you, it was the most wonderful day. We did a kids project in here with them. I mean, we did everything to really, but what you really want to do is anything you can do. I mean, you talk about the most underpaid, overworked person in this country, and it's a teacher. And whatever we can do to support and help and bolster all of these teachers who go to work, every day to, raise it up.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Geoffrey, what you were saying before. Yeah, actors shouldn't make less, but waitresses should make more.
Teachers should make.
Teachers should be making a lot more in America.
Gosh, oh my
It's amazing how we decided to put a specific value on that work that seems so far below what it's actually worth.
I was a teacher I taught private school, high school English for 2 years, while I was had my career going to a certain extent. But I don't think actually, I think that's the most work I've ever done. The amount of hours I was working a week. You think 40-hour work week? No, I mean that's just that's a myth. I was working incredible amount of time a week, and the pay was, I loved doing it, so it was all right, but I mean, I and all my fellow teachers it just felt just ridiculous how underpaid everyone was. It's a no-brainer that teachers need to get much more, and they just need to be valued a lot more.
What will we keep from what we just went through? And what do you think
I
will
can't
change?
say what we will keep. I can say what I hope we'll keep. This respect for essential workers that's so, that we're expressing so much now. All the signs on the lawns and the signs up and everything. I hope that never goes away. Even when the crisis lifts, it would be a shame to go back to the oblivion about the workers all around us. And in that strangely American way, the focus that we've always had on the successful, good, well-paying jobs, and those other jobs, that level of disrespect. I hope we never go back to that.
If I could just add one thing from my profession, so many people now get to work at home, and I found that a great blessing. But I'm very lucky that I have a job that allows me to work at home. And I think, boy, if everyone could just work at home and we wouldn't have to travel so much and burn so much gas and clog up the highways. And if you look at downtown Hartford, there's a lot of skyscrapers that are not filled with people working there. And in some ways, for them, that's okay. But a couple little sandwich shops that I love in downtown Hartford closed because no one's there to buy sandwiches anymore.
Right.
And I think it gets back to that, that idea of the essential worker. There's a much larger percentage of people who have to go and do the thing, and they can't sit there on Zoom every day.
Right.
And one thing I hope I will remember is that as much as I complain about having Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, it ain't like getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to milk the cows, right? That shit's got to get done. And it doesn't get done on Zoom.
That's right. You can't milk a cow on Zoom.
You can't milk a cow on Zoom.
I think that Mark Twain?
If you take away nothing else from this evening.
I can't remember the story.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think my thing is slightly been said before in this, and that is just, we love to teach every kid who wants to weld, or teach every kid who wants to, and we're doing some really fun stuff even now before we have a visitor center and anything else. But we're not going to be a technical training center. But what we are going to be is a place where people, and mainly kids, but I say people because I'm talking to the world here. Let's talk about possibility, you know. And I think that when you're talking to a kid about possibilities, you're saying, well, you know, don't let anybody rain on your parade. If you got an idea and you think it's a good one, go for it. Well, they're looking back here and they're going, maybe she's right, you know. I mean, but it's like, I think that the only thing you have to be ready for is you're going to have to bust ass, and you're going to have to be ready for failure. Because every great idea, you hope it works, but it doesn't always work. And you want to go in going, I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to take that chance because I really love this and I want to do it. There's this loaded thing about what it is that you want to do, and you want to do it badly. And there's also the thing about whatever your responsibility is as an artist or as a person in this universe to give back and to do it. And so when you're working on it, you're going, how can I reconcile the fact that there are so many people who have so much and some people have nothing? How can I reconcile that we're all supposed on this earth and we kind of want to love each other, but then there's all these things in the way that separate us all the time? And you can't do it all, but you have to sit and go, all right, I got my piece. I think this is what I can do. And, shoot, it's not Frank Stella. No, I'm not going to make that. And yeah, it's not going to be Cezanne either. But it's going to be me. And the meanness in me is going to be what makes it work.
Right.
And that is what each kid needs to find. The meanness in it.
Thank you, Geoffrey, John, and Ellen, for a thought-provoking conversation that truly brought the themes of work and this mural to life. So we have saved our grand finale to the end, a premiere performance featuring singer Teresa Thomason, filmed right here at AMP. So please don't go away. But first, we'd love to give you a glimpse into the AMP projects done around the country beginning in 2003, and then a quick look at our outdoor design program from last year right here at AMP.
I was struck by the aspiration of it. It aims high. It aspires to be big and original and glorifies the working class, which is not getting much attention today.
The American Mural Project is 120 feet long, 48 feet high, 5 stories high, and the depth ranges from 6 to 8 feet. We're building this out of all different materials coming from all 50 states.
I started the American Mural Project with Ellen when I was teaching 6th grade English and Social Studies. She's an amazing person that just wants to make things happen and connect people together.
My chief objective, both in the creation of the Mural Project and in the final piece itself, is to inspire people, young people, old people, everybody.
The work that you're doing could directly impact the 50% dropout rates that are now common in the United States of America. Black and Hispanic youth do not complete high school at the rate of 50%, 1 out of 2 kids. So why don't we start to look around at models that do make sense, you know, that have evidence and results and outcomes and so forth. That's what you guys are doing.
I think part of the art of this project isn't just what one sees visually, but it's the remarkable cooperative, interactive art that Ellen has managed.
But I knew that it wasn't just us. It was everyone that was working together. It was cool just to see what everyone's ideas were.
You need people to see things from different kind of perspectives. And sometimes that's a cultural difference. Sometimes it's where you were brought up, what school you went to, what country you came from. If everybody thought the same, it'd be a disaster.
Art brings all types of people together on the same plane. There's not a hierarchy. There's not a class. It doesn't matter about your background, and everyone's vital in the process.
I got to see everybody else's artwork and how they express themselves and how everyone around the country can combine together to make one huge mural.
The best form of learning is experiential, by doing something. The process of doing it releases opportunities to develop insight into yourself, into the creative process.
So something that seemed like some crazy idea has now become something that seems really necessary, not to mention what we're doing with kids in giving them some sense of motivation, inspiration as to their futures and what they're going to do with their lives in work.
Oh, all right. That really came out well.
It talks to every aspect of education. And my kids, they were just so fired up about this.
One thing that really inspired me about Ellen is how much beauty she saw in each one of the students' artwork.
What do you think? Isn't that gorgeous?
The goal is not to train artists. The goal is to use the arts as a strategy to work with people so that they have options in their life other than the ones they were born into. So as you stimulate the imagination, you also stimulate thinking. And as the kids begin to think, it occurs to them through association that they could have a different life.
It was like us being artists that are in a museum, putting our work up and stuff like Pastel Picasso.
I was really proud of myself for actually doing it.
I learned that art is the best way to show your feelings and emotions. That was a good day.
Take 4. The summer program at AMP was created years ago and evolved out of a need to have a different experience for children.
Truly, it's a vocational camp. You're seeing the result firsthand. It's not on a chalkboard, it's in your hands, it's in front of you. You see the result of your work. Right off the bat, they're doing stuff I didn't do till I was 20.
Now I know how to saw, chisel, use nails and screwdrivers, stuff like that. So it's double goodness, I could say.
There we go. Whatever we choose, we need to keep that consistent. My name's Chip Hoyer, and I am the lead guy at the Outdoor Design and Building program at AMP. My first job was actually building guitars, so I learned woodworking at a very high level.
I'm Christine Mitchell. I weld recycled metal into sculptures. And I am an art teacher myself, and I've been teaching school for 30 years. Chip and I first met several years ago in AMP.
I couldn't ask for somebody better than Christine to work with. She has the teaching experience I don't.
And he brings these intense skills with materials. Together, I think we make this really dynamite team.
Seeing a kid do something that you said 3 days ago, and they did it on their own. They heard what you said. It made sense to them, and they applied it to their world. And when we see it stick, that's the best part.
And you want the nail perpendicular
I
to the
know
wood.
that word.
You know that word?
My math teacher uses it too much.
It's a math word. It's amazing how much math we use when we're building.
Really?
Yeah, it's incredible.
We're learning construction and how to do stuff in the woods.
AMP is really a fun place, and at the same time it teaches you a lot. Yeah, but I feel more comfortable with all the materials. So they get to do things like explore and use tools and build, and I think that gives them a greater sense of themselves and confidence and empowerment.
I learned how to make a toolbox.
One of the things that people don't realize that's truly invaluable about the AMP experience is what happens behind the scenes. People are forever helping us by giving us supplies that make this all possible.
We're using hand tools. Hand tools are hard to use, and if they're not new and sharp, the kids are not going to like to do it. They each have their own tools. They're responsible for them. They have that feeling of responsibility and that they can do something. And once they learn how to use them, look out. They're going to make all kinds of stuff. They're going to be asking their parents for tools, I'm sure.
I think for some kids, it's a matter of the actual skill building that we're presenting to them, working with tools and things like that. But I think also for some kids, it's about discovering things that they didn't know that they can do, or getting new information, or overcoming a fear. They feel inspired, they feel safe, they feel like they can take some risks.
Wow!
Okay, now what are you going to do with it?
All right.
The things we learn are super focused, and when 5 other kids are sitting around, they don't know what to do. We have things for them to do. If only we could understand that we have this gift. Everybody has the gift of art in them. It's a way of looking at the world. It has nothing to do with skill or talent or anything. It's a way of observing and noticing things that are around you. Whatever inspires you, if you dream big, that's art. You're experiencing your world. You're not looking for it outside of it. It's there, it's right in front of you, and you're noticing it and taking it in and expressing it in some way. It doesn't matter how.
Individual, corporate, and foundation support is so vital to the American Mural Project realizing its full potential here. We have so much to do. We're already beginning to realize our vision in beautiful, wonderful, impactful ways, but there's so much more that we can do. We hope that you'll join us.
We want to send you out tonight on a high note. Singer and recording artist Teresa Thomason is another friend of AMP. Recently, she visited the mural and, inspired by what she saw, collaborated with AMP to create the musical performance you're about to enjoy. Her passionate and heartfelt rendition of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution is an appropriate and perfect finale to tonight's tribute to American workers. Thank you for joining us and for your generosity. Enjoy Teresa Thomason.
We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life and liberty, and the pursuit of